like to share with you my own personal journey with Lyme disease. And in this simple video, I'm going to share with you some of the personal journey that I have been on and answer some of the questions like, well, what is Lyme disease? And what are the symptoms? How does one diagnose Lyme disease? And what do I need to do to change in my life? What sort of treatments are there for Lyme disease? What supportive therapies are there? What herbs and supplements can I take? Am I willing to change the style of my life? So these are some of the things I'm going to discuss with you through this video. For you to know, I'm also going to place a little information below this YouTube video, some different resources, some things that will help educate you a little, as it has helped me to understand the symptoms and the awareness of this, work on an inner level too. So I've started this video with a background of beautiful wild sunflowers as a symbol to myself to always look towards the sun, to choose to follow that light inside of myself and to see the positive in what seems like a very debilitating and daunting disease to cope with, especially when it becomes chronic, as it did in my case, and to be able to see the outcome of that and not only survive the disease but to thrive from that. And that's what I'm choosing in this journey that I'd like to share with all of you. So what is Lyme disease? Well, it's a bacterial organism that is found on some ticks, and so we can track that by being bitten by a tick that has this particular bacteria. And the tick can come from any sort of animal, from a deer, a dog, a cat, a mouse, a sheep, and can even be transported, it seems to be, by mosquito or fly nowadays. So it's an organism that bites into the skin and actually excretes something that creates a numbness. You don't even necessarily notice it. Often it can be around the hairline. In my case I think it was in this area and behind my neck, so I didn't really notice it in seeing it properly. And it rather looks like a bullseye rash with a little point in the middle, but not everybody has one. In fact, about 50% of cases, people don't even have this particular rash. And it's seen as a really prevalent endemic at the moment. In fact, in the USA, the Center for Disease Control estimated that there are probably about 300,000 cases a year, most of which aren't actually reported. So it's a devastating disease, and some of the symptoms that I've experienced are so mind-blowing. They're really daunting and very debilitating and can change in any minute because the bacteria can move through different stages. It moves from being the larvae to a nymph, which may only be the size of a poppy seed, to an adult, and it could be dormant in your cells for a long time, for many months, even years at stages. It's so easy for it to hide away, so it's actually known as the great imitator or the great imposter, able to bury itself and camouflage itself and find a way to not be discovered within our system. And it's multi-systemic, meaning that it can get into all sorts of systems. Now, what are the symptoms of Lyme disease? Well, I shall tell you from my own personal perspective of what I experienced over, I believe, possibly 2 years, maybe just a year. I'm not sure exactly because I don't know when I was bitten precisely. But the symptoms that I experienced were as if I had flu. I had constant headaches and aches in the jaw, very chronic pains in my neck, and which was obviously due to swelling in my brain. I seemed to have eye loss and couldn't really focus on anything with my eyes. I was always dizzy and I had terrible vertigo. It seemed as if everything was spinning around me and rushing past me. I couldn't even cross the road. Other types of symptoms were swollen glands, stabbing pains and spasms all over the place. But these symptoms often changed. Although I had constant pain, some of the symptoms seem to move and change around, and that's because the bacteria is multisystemic and can get into all sorts of organs, and one of the main organs is into the nervous system and into the neurological areas. So they're very often what seem to be psychological problems, but they're actually all an effect of this bacteria eating away at you inside. So you often feel as if you have panic attacks. You have a brain or mental fog. You can't process information. You feel incredibly despondent and depressed, especially as, in my case, nobody could diagnose what was going on. So there are many, many different symptoms that you can have. And how is Lyme disease actually diagnosed? Well, quite frankly, it's difficult. Very many people have a tick bite and therefore a rash, but in probably about 50% of the cases that's not actually so. And very often it's misdiagnosed. So because the symptoms are similar to fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, arthritis, to Lou Gehrig's disease and multiple sclerosis, often it's misdiagnosed. So in my particular case, nobody had any idea. I had CT scans, blood tests, everything came out normal. And it wasn't until actually this Lyme disease created meningitis in my neck and in my head, the swelling of the brain, that I actually ended up having a stroke of luck as I call it, and then went to have an MRI scan. And because the MRI is able to pick up on all the soft tissue, it showed not only that I'd had a stroke, but that there was also something else going on. And obviously I had many symptoms to show that. So they delved deeper and had a look. Basically, I had a lumbar puncture or a spinal tap, which showed the cerebral fluid that I had Lyme's disease. But it was actually a number of weeks. They thought maybe I even had tuberculosis or syphilis, as can be very similar in their symptoms. So it's not the easiest thing to diagnose, but it's important to go and get those tests. And I believe in the USA they have a particular test, blood test, called an Alicia blood test. So don't think that, oh, I'm just suffering from something else. Please make sure that you go and check out what it is you've actually got. What sort of treatment is available for Lyme's disease? Well, from a medical profession, basically it's antibiotics, and it depends at what stage you're actually at as to how many and for how long. Some people stay on antibiotics for many months, even years in some cases. Personally, what happened with me is that I went on a specific antibiotic and steroids to kill the bug off. But then, as we all know, antibiotics means anti-life. So, of course, you have to counteract that. So I was blessed to be with friends who gave me different herbs and supplements to help counteract the negative or the destructive effects of the antibiotics, and also to boost my system because I'd lost a lot of weight, a lot of muscle, and really needed replenishing. So below this video, as I said, I'm going to put a lot of information which will include the different herbs and supplements that I've taken. But to name a few, basically I've taken things that have helped clean my system out and cleanse me. So from a constipation, I went to diarrhea because a lot was releasing during that time. So different sorts of supplements that I've been taking are cell food, which is a type of liquid oxygen, colloidal silver, which is antibacterial and antiviral, a number of herbs, for example hawthorn, which increases the oxygen in your blood. I've been doing different exercises to try and increase my ability to fight things as well. And as I said, I'm going to put information below this video so you can have a look at that. And you can also feel free to email me and ask me anything you like about this particular subject. And if I can help in any way, I'd be happy to. Now let's look at also what is it within me that has perhaps attracted this disease, and what is it I need to change in my life? Well, in many of the healing books they say psychosomatically that actually disease of any sort is actually all about indecision and a lack of purpose in your life. And so really I need to look at, as others do, to look at, well, what was going on? What was the trauma in my life perhaps at that time that created this attraction? Because normally speaking, if our immune system is really on top form, we ought to be able to fight bacteria such as Lyme disease. So there's always work to look at within oneself. Now, it can be the case that for some people you can become very despondent. In my case, I didn't know what was wrong with me, but obviously something was, and I became very depressed. I became angry at times. Everything seemed irrational, everything seemed foggy, and I really didn't have a goal or a purpose. I was just living day by day, hoping that one day I would get better. As it happened, as I said, I had a stroke, and in a way it was like that was a wake-up call to me to say, hey, get on, something's going on here, something's stopping you. So you need to pick yourself up and really push through this. And I'm very grateful to the medical profession for helping me and assisting me with their medical forms of antibiotics before I was able to help myself more with herbs and supplements. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of the systems within our body that Lyme disease affects is the neurological and the nervous systems. So you can expect to really have different mood swings during that time and have panic attacks. All sorts of things can be going on. So although physically you may get better, you may still be having different types of mood swings. So it's important to be aware of that and be conscious of that and be more alert to what actually triggers those different moods, realizing that it's not necessarily just emotional. It could be that you physically need something to help balance you within, or it could be that your own emotions are causing the physical effects. So again, it's important to take time, slow down, and be more consciously aware of everything. I like actually to write things down, or in this case I'm actually videoing things. In a way it's helping me to release the Lyme disease, to let it go, and help to inspire others or help others who may be suffering from this. So for now I shall say farewell from myself and these beautiful glorious sunflowers always facing the light. And I wish you, in whatever form you're in at the moment, that you will not only survive, but you will thrive and move into even greater things. Let this be a learning, a transition, a stage of moving through the doorways. Even though we don't know where we're going, we're simply transforming into the butterflies that we are, and it's time to open our wings and fly. So blessings to everybody. Thank you.